Hey guys, tonight we're stepping quietly into a candlelit world of swords, sandals, and silence. You're walking the narrow streets of Edo-period Tokyo, but it's the early 1700s, and the city is veiled in the deep, hushed stillness of night. The lamps glow softly behind rice paper windows, shadows stretch long and still across stone courtyards, and somewhere in the distance, a temple bell gives one slow, echoing chime. You hear the faint clip of wooden Geta sandals as a lone samurai heads home from duty. His silhouette disappears behind a sliding door, and just like that, the night wraps around everything. You're in a world where even sleep obeys ritual, where dreams may be signs from the divine, and getting enough rest isn't just about comfort, it's about honor. The sword must be sharp, the mind clear. You probably won't survive this strict schedule, but don't worry, no one's grading you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still awake, drop your city and local time in the comments. It's always lovely seeing where everyone's listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk slowly past wooden homes tucked behind low fences. A few lamps still flicker, but most windows are dark. Even the stray cats know it's late. The breeze smells like warm dust, cedar, and ash from burnt charcoal. Crickets buzz somewhere off near the canals. You step lightly past a closed tea house. Then a humble dojoit's sign sways slightly in the night air, creaking with a sleepy kind of rhythm. Edo, in the 18th century, is one of the largest cities in the world, teeming with over 1 million people, but this late at night, it feels deserted. There's no glow of electric lights, no car horns or phone screens, just the soft hush of footsteps over packed earth. It's almost unsettling how quiet it is, almost like the city itself is holding its breath. You pause outside a samurai residence. Not a towering castle, those are for daimyo lords, but a middle-ranking warrior's home. The gate is modest, flanked by stone lanterns. You duck under the low eaves and step into the inner courtyard. The last glow of an oil lamp lights the entryway. Inside, the household is winding down. A servant carefully lowers the shoji panels to shut out the night air. The family swords are racked neatly in the corner, and the charcoal brazier burns low. You can smell the warm iron of the kettle and a hint of cedar smoke. Samurai lived by a strict code, and that extended to their nights. There's no Netflix binge, no scrolling till your thumb cramps. Instead, you follow an unspoken rhythm built around the hours of the sun, the flicker of the Anden lantern, and the needs of the body, not just for rest, but for readiness. And yet sleep doesn't come automatically. Even the stoic warriors of Edo must ease into it. Children are already tucked into their bedding-thin futons stretched across tatami mat floors. A mother hums softly as she checks that the mosquito nets are sealed. A boy clutches a carved wooden horse to his chest. He probably pretended it was a war steed earlier this afternoon. Now, it's just a comfort against the dark. The head of the house, still dressed in light robes, kneels beside the hearth. He quietly checks the coals, adjusts the lid of a small iron pot, then stretches his legs with a long, weary sigh. The days here are long. Duties to the clan, reports to the magistrate, endless etiquette rituals. And yes, sword training never truly stops. Some historians still argue whether most samurai actually engaged in much fighting during this peaceful Tokugawa era, but even without battle, the mental grind was real. And sleep? That was your one moment to forget the world if you were lucky. Through a side door, you glimpse the servants finishing their chores. A woman folds towels with care. Another carries a bucket of water to douse the last flickering lamp. They, too, will roll out futons in the corner of a narrow side room far from the family, but still under the same roof. You move quietly past the family altar, where incense curls up like a whisper. Ancestors must not be disturbed. The air smells thick with devotion. And outside, the street is silent now. Even the wind holds still. You lie back on the futon, head resting on a wooden pillowcase, a smooth block, curved to cradle your neck just so. It's oddly comforting. Everything here is purposeful, minimal. A place for the body to pause, for the soul to wander. But just before your eyes close, you hear something in the distance, a long, wooden clack. 2 hollow beats. It's the Yamabin, the night watchman, striking his Hayashiji blocks. His rhythmic signal echoes down the alleys, telling you it's the 4th hour of the night, probably just after midnight. You smile a little in the dark. Even now, centuries later, it feels strangely secure knowing someone's still out there, keeping time. And then, with the hush of a temple bell still reverberating gently in your memory, you finally let your eyes close. The floor beneath your back is firmer than your used tother's, no springy mattress, no soft pillow fortress. Just a neatly laid futon, stitched with care and filled with cotton batting, resting atop tightly woven tatami. The air still carries the warmth of the hearth, but it's fading slowly, like the glow of a firefly on its last pulse. You're inside a samurai's residence now, not the castle of a high lord, but a typical middle-ranking home in Edo's rigid social hierarchy. The house breathes with quiet precision. Every beam and mat fits just right. You'd almost feel guilty sneezing in here. The ceiling is low, the walls are made of paper and wood, and the entire space is lit by just a single Andan lamp, a simple frame of bamboo and paper with a flickering oil flame inside. Its glow isn't bright. It's gentle, fuzzy around the edges, the kind of light that hums rather than shines. You're not alone in the house. In the next room, separated by sliding screens, the rest of the family is preparing for bed. The head of the household has changed into looser robes. He folds his legs neatly, places his daishohi's long katana and short wakizashi carefully on a wooden stand near his pillow, always within reach. Even in sleep, he must be ready. There's a quiet domesticity here that contrasts with the drama people often associate with samurai. These weren't all swashbuckling duelists slicing through bamboo forests at midnight. Most were bureaucrats, tax officers, guards, or teachers. They kept ledgers by day and observed protocols by night. But still, the sword remains beside the bed. Tradition sleeps lightly. A servant girl steps softly into the room, carrying a tray. On it, a small ceramic cup of warm water, a folded towel, and a sprig of incense. You watch as she bows lightly, sets the tray down, and retreats without a word. It's not a hotel turn-down service, but it's just as deliberate. The small rituals matter. They separate wakefulness from rest, duty from dreaming. Before bedding down, the samurai performs a few quiet tasks. He rinses his mouth with the water. He wipes his hands and face with the towel. He lifts the incense to a tiny clay burner and lets it smolder. A pale ribbon of sandalwood-scented smoke curls upward. This isn't just about hygiene or fragrance, it's spiritual. The smoke purifies the space, encourages peace, keeps the world of the dead at bay, or so people believed. You hear a faint rustle in the other rooms. Children adjusting their sleeping robes. The creak of the floor as the wife checks that all the doors are secured. Everyone sleeps in close quarters, often in 1 or 2 connected rooms, separated by thin partitions. Privacy isn't really a thing here, but intimacy, that's abundant. You can hear the breathing of everyone around you. Even the soft snore of the grandfather in the far corner is oddly soothing. The mosquito net is drawn down from the Salinga sheer box of mesh draping over the bedding. Not just for insects, though those were certainly a problem in the humid months, but also to give a sense of enclosure, of sacredness. This is your space. The outside world, with all its rigid codes and potential sword fights, can wait until morning. Sometimes a brazier, called a hibachi, is placed nearby to keep the chill off. A tiny iron pot with glowing embers inside. Dangerous if left unattended, but a comforting presence if carefully watched. You settle more deeply into the futon, adjusting to the wooden pillow. It's a half-moon shape, wrapped in soft cloth, designed to support the neck while keeping the hair carefully styled top knots especially undisturbed. Sleep posture wasn't just about comfort. It was about preserving presentation. A bedhead wasn't just annoying, it was undignified. The night flows slowly. There's no hurry here. No alarm to set. No emails to check. The samurai slept when it was dark, rose when the rooster crowed. Their bodies followed nature's tempo, not productivity apps. Still, historians still debate just how disciplined these routines truly were. Did every household adhere strictly to early bedtime and sunrise wake-up? Or did some samurai sneak out for a late cup of sake or a moonlit stroll to the bathhouse? Records are sketchy. Diaries weren't exactly confessional. But what's clear is this: bedtime was serious business, especially in a society where decorum mattered more than almost anything. Imagine sleeping every night knowing your rank could be revoked, your stipend slashed, or your sword confiscated if you dishonored your name even accidentally. Now that's pressure. So they wound down with care. No gossiping across rooms. No laughter too loud. The last words spoken each night were often subdued, if not entirely silent. You lie still. The paper walls around you glow faintly from the dying lamp. Shadows ripple from the flame like tiny waves. Somewhere outside, another temple bell chimes. 1, then 2. The old system of Kakuji, time measured by bells and watchman calls, drifts softly across the neighborhood. You might be a little too warm under the quilted futon. Or maybe your leg is cramping from lying flat. You want to roll over, but you don't want to rustle too loudly. You don't want to be that guest in the house. And yet, there's something deeply comforting in the order of it all. Even the discomfort's wooden pillows, minimal bedding, the lack of privacy, they feel like part of something coherent. A world with rules. And when the world has rules, you don't lie awake wondering if it's all going to collapse tomorrow. You breathe deeply. The air is still. The sword gleams softly in the shadows beside you. And you close your eyes. You blink your eyes open briefly, maybe from a creak in the hallway or a shift in the wind outside. But it's still dark. Still deep in the middle of the night. Your body doesn't know what time it is, exactly. There are no glowing red digits on a nightstand. No vibration of a smartphone under your pillow. Just the slow, natural rhythm of breathing, both yours and the others in the room. The samurai household around you has begun its quiet transformation from day to night. Before true rest can happen, the sleeping space must be carefully prepared. And in Edo-period Japan, even the act of laying bedding is ritualized. First come the tatami mats beneath your futon. Made from tightly woven rice straw, they're surprisingly springy, not soft like a mattress, but with enough give to ease your joints. You can feel the crosshatch texture under the thin cotton layer of your futon, and in some way, it's grounding. Literal. Like your body knows it's resting on the earth, not floating above it. Now the futon itself, folded earlier in a storage cabinet called a ashiire, it's now unrolled methodically. In wealthier homes, these bedding sets might be made of silk or filled with finely processed cotton. In more modest residences, rougher materials were common. You notice that the bedding isn't heaped up like a modern bed. It's a slim layer of bottom futon and a thinner top quilt, or cake futon, pulled over the body. Samurai didn't pile up tin pillows and nest under layers of throw blankets. There were no bedtime fortresses here, just what was needed and no more. Before sleep, the mosquito net is lowered, called a kaya. It's suspended from wooden poles above the bed and falls into place like a translucent veil. Insects were more than just annoying. They carried disease, and people took them seriously. The kaya not only blocks bugs, but gives the sleeper a sense of being enclosed, protected, like being inside a softly breathing box. You reach over toward a small square box near your bedding. Inside is a tiny hibachi, an iron brazier with a few glowing coals. It emits a faint warmth, enough to push back the edge of night's chill. There's no central heating. You're not dialing a thermostat. If you're lucky, there's a pot of warm water on top, slowly steaming. And then, the smell, faint smoke mixed with tatami straw and the earthy scent of old wood. It's familiar, lived in, like a family that's been here for generations. In more elite households, servants might prepare the bedding while the samurai relaxed or read. But in many homes, even mid-ranking warriors took care of their own sleeping arrangements. There's dignity in self-sufficiency. A man must be able to lay his own bed and rise from it ready to die for his clan. A little dramatic, sure, but welcome to the Edo period. As the night deepens, your senses shift. You listen more closely. Small noises take on greater meaning. A distant clack of wood, again the hayashiji, those wooden blocks the night watchmen use. 2 sharp knocks in rhythm. It's not just ambience. The sound serves as a timekeeping system and a gentle security check. If you're awake to hear it, you know the night patrol is doing their job. You hear a soft step in the hallway, someone moving from one room to another. Possibly an older family member on their way to check the firebox or tend to a child. In this world, there's no flick of a switch. Every light must be tended by hand. Every comfort maintained by ritual. You roll over slightly and adjust the maceraire wooden pillow. It's not as harsh as it sounds. Shaped to support your neck and sometimes wrapped in cloth, it's designed to maintain posture and, crucially, not ruin your carefully styled hair. Samurai took grooming seriously, and hair was part of identity. Mess it up too often, and you weren't just unkempt, you were disrespecting your social role. Historians still debate whether most households enforced these aesthetics every night, or whether some folks just said, screw it, and slept however they wanted when no one was looking. There's not a lot of first-hand commentary in the record. Edo samurai weren't tweeting hot takes on pillow ergonomics. As you settle again, your gaze catches the tokonoma shallow alcove in the room, where a scroll hangs above a single flower arrangement. This is a place for beauty and contemplation, even in the sleeping chamber. And what's on the scroll? Maybe a Zen proverb. Maybe a poem about the moon. Maybe something about impermanence and fleeting dreams. You breathe it in. The scene feels complete. And yet, just before sleep arrives, there's one more thing. A bowl of water, left by the bedside. Not for drinking, but for symbolic cleansing or for a quick rinse upon waking. A small, practical ritual with roots in both Shinto and Buddhist traditions. You cleanse not just your hands, but your presence. You enter sleep clean in body and spirit. There's no turning off the world here. No digital clock. No remote control. Just the slow ebb of breath and flicker of firelight. The only electricity is the crackle of coal and the rare flicker of foxfire out in the woods. You feel the netting around you stir gently as you exhale. The house has gone still. Even the floorboards have stopped creaking. And slowly, very slowly, you begin to dissolve into the night, one limb at a time, your thoughts softening like ink in water. You blink your eyes open briefly, maybe from a creak in the hallway or a shift in the wind outside. But it's still dark, still deep in the middle of the night. Your body doesn't know what time it is, exactly. There are no glowing red digits on a nightstand, no vibration of a smartphone under your pillow. Just the slow, natural rhythm of breathing, both yours and the others in the room. The samurai household around you has begun its quiet transformation from day to night. Before true rest can happen, the sleeping space must be carefully prepared. And in Edo-period Japan, even the act of laying bedding is ritualized. First come the tatami mats beneath your futon. Made from tightly woven rice straw, they're surprisingly springy, not soft like a mattress, but with enough give to ease your joints. You can feel the crosshatch texture under the thin cotton layer of your futon, and in some way, it's grounding. Literal. Like your body knows it's resting on the earth, not floating above it. Now the futon itself, folded earlier in a storage cabinet called a ashiire, it's now unrolled methodically. In wealthier homes, these bedding sets might be made of silk or filled with finely processed cotton. In more modest residences, rougher materials were common. Either way, the futon is shaken out carefully, smoothed, and aligned just so. No lumps. No creases. You notice that the bedding isn't heaped up like a modern bed. It's a slim layer of bottom futon and a thinner top quilt, or cake futon, pulled over the body. Samurai didn't pile up tin pillows and nest under layers of throw blankets. There were no bedtime fortresses here. Just what was needed, and no more. Before sleep, the mosquito net is lowered, called a kaya. It's suspended from wooden poles above the bed and falls into place like a translucent veil. Insects were more than just annoying. They carried disease, and people took them seriously. The kaya not only blocks bugs, but gives the sleeper a sense of being enclosed, protected, like being inside a softly breathing box. You reach over toward a small square box near your bedding. Inside is a tiny hibachi, an iron brazier with a few glowing coals. It emits a faint warmth, enough to push back the edge of night's chill. There's no central heating. You're not dialing a thermostat. If you're lucky, there's a pot of warm water on top, slowly steaming. And then, the smell, faint smoke mixed with tatami straw and the earthy scent of old wood. It's familiar, lived in, like a family that's been here for generations. In more elite households, servants might prepare the bedding while the samurai relaxed or read. But in many homes, even mid-ranking warriors took care of their own sleeping arrangements. There's dignity in self-sufficiency. A man must be able to lay his own bed and rise from it ready to die for his clan. A little dramatic, sure, but welcome to the Edo period. As the night deepens, your senses shift. You listen more closely. Small noises take on greater meaning. A distant clack of wood, again the hayashiji, those wooden blocks the night watchmen use. Two sharp knocks in rhythm. It's not just ambience. The sound serves as a timekeeping system and a gentle security check. If you're awake to hear it, You know the night patrol is doing their job. You hear a soft step in the hallway, someone moving from one room to another. Possibly an older family member on their way to check the firebox or tend to a child. In this world, there's no flick of a switch. Every light must be tended by hand. Every comfort maintained by ritual. You roll over slightly and adjust the Macarere wooden pillow. It's not as harsh as it sounds. Shaped to support your neck and sometimes wrapped in cloth, it's designed to maintain posture and, crucially, not ruin your carefully styled hair. Samurai took grooming seriously, and hair was part of identity. Mess it up too often, and you weren't just unkempt, you were disrespecting your social role. Historians still debate whether most households enforced these aesthetics every night, or whether some folks just said, screw it, and slept however they wanted when no one was looking. There's not a lot of first-hand commentary in the record. Edo samurai weren't tweeting hot takes on pillow ergonomics. As you settle again, your gaze catches the tokonoma shallow alcove in the room, where a scroll hangs above a single flower arrangement. This is a place for beauty and contemplation, even in the sleeping chamber. And what's on the scroll? Maybe a Zen proverb. Maybe a poem about the moon. Maybe something about impermanence and fleeting dreams. You breathe it in. The scene feels complete. And yet, just before sleep arrives, there's one more thing. A bowl of water, left by the bedside. Not for drinking, but for symbolic cleansing or for a quick rinse upon waking. A small, practical ritual with roots in both Shinto and Buddhist traditions. You cleanse not just your hands, but your presence. You enter sleep clean in body and spirit. There's no turning off the world here. No digital clock. No remote control. Just the slow ebb of breath and flicker of firelight. The only electricity is the crackle of coal and the rare flicker of foxfire out in the woods. You feel the netting around you stir gently as you exhale. The house has gone still. Even the floorboards have stopped creaking. And slowly, very slowly, you begin to dissolve into the night, one limb at a time, your thoughts softening like ink in water. You wake before the sun, not because you're in a hurry, but because the house itself nudges you awake. It begins with subtle cues. The low, clinking sound of someone stoking the embers in the hearth room. The faint rustle of clothing as a robe is shrugged on in the dark. The creak of a door sliding open just enough to let in the sharp blue breath of dawn. In Edo-period Japan, the samurai schedule often began before first light, and not with sword drills or stoic meditations on mortality, but with the simple act of getting up quietly so as not to disturb anyone. Manners, even in waking, mattered. The futon you slept on last night isn't meant to remain in place. It gets folded almost immediately after rising, dust shaken out, and the bedding returned to the ashiryo wooden closet space, built specifically for storage. Samurai didn't leave their lives sprawled across the room. They tidied sleep away with ceremony. You rise slowly, shake out your blanket, and fold it just so. You may still be half asleep, but you do it properly. You feel the chill more sharply now. That brazier? It's barely a whisper of warmth. Your breath fogs in the air. Time to layer up. Morning robes are thicker, woven from cotton or wool, and tied loosely at the waist with a sash. You notice that even the act of dressing has a deliberate rhythm. There's a calm dignity in tying your sash neatly, straightening the sleeves. Then comes the ritual cleansing. There's no running water, only a ceramic basin filled from a jug and a small wooden ladle. You pour a measured scoop over your hands, rinse your face, and if you're particularly fastidious, gargle quietly. The cold water snaps you fully awake. You towel off with a piece of thin cotton cloth that's been folded perfectly into a small square. No one is rushing, but no one is lounging either. The first major task of the morning? Fire. In every samurai household, one of the earliest acts of the day is reviving the fire. Whether it's in the Irith central hearth pit or a smaller cooking stove in the kitchen, fire meant warmth, light, breakfast, and tea. If you were lucky, someone else took care of it. But in a household without many servants, that someone might just be you. You crouch near the hearth, nudging the embers with an iron poker. A wisp of smoke curls up and vanishes into the blackened bamboo hood above. The coals blink awake slowly, like a grumpy cat roused from sleep. You feed in thin sticks of kindling and fan them with a woven reed fan. Patience. Fire has its own pace. Breakfast preparation begins in tandem. You hear the sound of uncooked rice being measured into a pot, then rinsed with several changes of water. It's cooked in an iron kettle suspended over the fire, with a practiced hand adjusting the distance of flame to avoid burning. You can already smell it hat faintly nutty scent of steaming rice. It smells like something solid. Like life. Not every samurai household ate a grand breakfast. Most meals were modest. A bowl of rice, a bit of pickled vegetable, perhaps a miso soup made from scratch if supplies allowed. Occasionally a slice of dried fish. Nothing flashy. But the presentation? Impeccable. Even a simple radish garnish was arranged with the same care as a sword on its stand. As you help set the meal, you notice the lacquerware trays, the ceramic bowls with delicate imperfections, the bamboo chopsticks smoothed by age and use. Nothing is random. Every item has a place and a purpose. Then comes the moment of stillness before eating, a pause, a breath, and the phrase itadikamasu, spoken quietly with a small bow. It's more than let's eat. It's an acknowledgement of the work behind the food, the life that gave it, the order it sustains. You don't just eat. You participate in the morning. After the meal, there's no lingering at the table, sipping coffee, and scrolling through memes. The day is calling, and the samurai must be ready. But ready means more than dressed. It means composed, mentally and physically, which brings you to the next part of the morning ritual, sword care. Yes, the katana isn't just a weapon, it's practically a member of the household. Before setting out, the samurai might sit on the tatami, unwrapping the silk cloth that encases the blade. He checks the edge, cleans it with a small cloth, applies oil to prevent rust, and rewraps it tightly. Even if there's no intention to draw the blade today, it must be honored. There's something quietly intense about this ritual. The blade gleams, even in low light, curved like a crescent moon. It hums when drawn softly, but unmistakably. You don't wave it around. You don't show it off. It rests across your lap like a sleeping creature. You respect it, or you regret it. Historians still argue whether daily sword maintenance was as widespread as the Romantic literature suggests. Some say it was exaggerated for effect. Others insist it was a near-sacred part of daily life. The truth, as always, probably lies somewhere in the middle between the practical and the poetic. And then, before leaving the house, the final step, footwear. You step into your tabi, those white split-toed socks, and slide your feet into straw sandals or wooden geta. They make a soft clack on the floorboards. You straighten your posture, bow lightly toward the family altar if your house has one in slide, open the door to the world outside. The sky is pale now. The city is stirring. Crows call from tiled rooftops, and the street outside smells faintly of river mist and distant charcoal fires. You take a breath. The day has begun, and all of this careful, quiet order has unfolded before most modern people have even snoozed their alarm. You haven't checked a calendar. You haven't seen a clock. But already, you've moved through a dozen actions that have been repeated, unchanged, for generations. There's something beautiful in that. Even if your back's a little sore from that wooden pillow. You step outside and the city greets you like a living creature, already breathing, already stretching. It's not noisy, not yet. Edo wakes gradually, like a cat sunning itself on warm stone. The morning air is crisp and carries the scent of damp wood, faint ash, and soy sauce from some breakfast kitchen just down the alley. And though your feet are barely touching the street, just soft slaps of your geta on packed earth, you are walking with a purpose. This is the start of the samurai's formal day. A day divided not by clocks, but by shadows and bells. The hour isn't 7 a.m. It's Toki no Kane, the time bell. Edo's timekeeping system is seasonal, shifting. 6 hours for day, 6 for night. Always adjusting with the sun. Confused? Good. You're in the right mindset. Samurai didn't obsess over precision like modern office workers. They didn't need Google Calendar. They had temple bells and the position of light. As a samurai of modest rank, your daytime duties are less blade-flashing drama and more administrative authority with a touch of swagger. You may be reporting to a local government office, perhaps in the service of a daimyo, a regional lord. You enforce codes, supervise construction, audit rice allotments, settle minor disputes. It's not glamorous. It's community management with swords and ceremonial bows. And even that requires you to show up looking the part. You wear 2 swords, the katana and the wakizashi. Together, they make up the deus ho, a symbol that you are part of the warrior class. You don't draw them. You don't brandish. You wear them like a passport, a badge of honor, and occasionally, a very effective argument. But underneath the robes, you're still sleepy. Not exhausted, but there's a kind of residue to these early hours. Like your body is just a little behind your intention. And you wouldn't be the only one. Because here's the lesser-known secret. Samurai didn't always sleep just once. Many historians argue that Edo-era people, like much of the pre-industrial world, often followed a biphasic sleep pattern. 2 chunks of sleep with a break in the middle. The first sleep took you from dusk to sometime around midnight or a little later. Then came a period of wakefulness, sometimes an hour, sometimes 2, called Uchibu. And then, a second sleep until dawn. What did people do during that midnight gap? Well, a little bit of everything. Some meditated. Some prayed. Some even wrote poetry or read under lamplight. And yes, some couples, well, let's keep it PG, but you get the idea. In samurai homes, especially quieter ones, that period might include quiet maintenance of gear, reflection, or simply sitting silently, waiting for the next wave of sleep to carry you off. Modern researchers speculate that this sleep pattern was not a problem, but a natural rhythm attuned to firelight and darkness, not fluorescence and screen time. So if you find yourself waking up for an hour every night at 2 a.m., congratulations. You might just be historically correct. Still, the expectation for a samurai was to be alert in the morning. This is where the rituals help. The folding of bedding, the cold water rinse, the slow warmth of rice. Each one, a small ritual of activation. You're not guzzling a cappuccino. You're rejoining the flow of the day with grace. You walk along the edge of a canal now. The water's surface is smooth as lacquer, broken only by a drifting leaf or the quiet ripple of a koi fish. A merchant's cart rolls by, its wheels groaning under baskets of radishes. A woman sweeps her storefront, scattering yesterday's dust into the street. And the scent of fresh ink wafts from a nearby print Japan ukiyo-e print drying in the morning air, still sticky with black outline and blush-colored pigment. The city is alive, but not hurried. No honking, no traffic snarls, no phones screaming in pockets. Just movement, with rhythm. You pass a small neighborhood shrine. A man, older than you by 2 decades at least, bows once at the torii gate, claps twice, and offers a prayer. It's short, sincere. Maybe it's for health. Maybe it's for rice. Maybe it's for forgiveness for snoring too loudly during second sleep. Whatever the case, it's offered, and the man walks on without looking back. The samurai, of course, was more than a swordsman. He was a public figure, a symbol that meant upholding a certain image. Even how you stood on the street mattered. You walked with straight posture, spoke with restraint, and avoided unnecessary confrontation. Sure, the code of Bushido called for loyalty and courage, but it also expected discipline, humility, and paperwork. Because yes, much of your morning will be spent not fighting bandits, but reviewing grain taxes, documenting repairs to a watchtower, or arbitrating which neighbor's fence technically crosses into whose garden. You can almost hear the collective sigh of disappointed teenage boys across centuries. No sword fights today, fellas. Only scrolls. You arrive at your post, bow to your superior, and receive your assignments. A small ink brush and ledger are placed in front of you. It's time to begin the day's work. Maybe you'll meet with other officials, inspect a market, or check that firewood storage complies with seasonal regulations. All part of the samurai's duty. Not glamorous, but vital. And remember that break in the night we mentioned? It's possible that later in the day, your body still remembers it. Maybe you'll slip in a brief nap. A sanctioned inuria kind of conscious doze that was socially acceptable, even in formal settings, as long as it didn't seem disrespectful. Close your eyes for 5 minutes, but keep your spine straight. A power nap, Edo style. Historians still debate whether this flexible sleep cycle declined by the late Edo period or remained common up to the Meiji Restoration. The evidence is mixed, and most is inferred through literature, diary fragments, and health manuals. But clearly, the samurai had their own rhythm, one tuned to seasons, ritual, and the slow dance of sun and moon. You complete your morning duties with quiet competence, standing, bowing, moving paper with deliberate grace. You've helped manage a city of 1 million people without rush, without caffeine, without inbox zero anxiety. And as the temple bell sounds again to mark the next segment of the day, you stand in your tabi, stretch your shoulders once, and prepare to step into the afternoon. But not too fast. No one rushes in Edo. Not even you. You step back into the street just as the sun begins to assert itself, no longer a pale smear on the horizon, but a golden disk throwing clean shadows and warming the backs of your shoulders. The city hums with more energy now. The foot traffic thickens. Children dart between doorways. Couriers hurry past with messages tucked into their sleeves, and shopkeepers call out daily specials like the town crier of miso and mochi. But midday for you doesn't mean lunch and lounging just yet. It's time for rounds. As a samurai serving in the administrative class, your tasks include walking through your assigned district, checking for order, mediating minor arguments, and above all, being seen. Your presence is a kind of civic reassurance. You don't need to say much. The paired swords say it for you. Today, there's already a cluster of drama waiting at a market stall, two vendors arguing over whose turn it is to set up near the well. You listen carefully. You don't raise your voice. Instead, you invoke precedent, gently mention what the records state, and remind them that drawing lots is an acceptable solution. The crowd nods, murmurs approval, and disperses. Problem solved. No bloodshed necessary. Not even a stern look. But here's the strange part: despite being the image of stoic calm, you're hungry. Absolutely starving. This is where things get interesting. The average samurai diet wasn't as glamorous as you might think. Despite their elevated status, samurai didn't feast daily on exotic delicacies. Most ate what the urban lower classes ate: rice, vegetables, pickles, and if they were lucky, a small portion of fish. The bulk of a samurai's meal was about sustenance, not indulgence. And lunch? It wasn't an affair of leisure. If you were stationed in a government office or patrolling the streets, you likely packed your own meal or paused for a quick bite at a designated break area. A bento box wrapped in cloth inside, tightly packed rice, pickled plum, some boiled greens, perhaps a slice of egg or dried sardine. Simple, efficient, delicious if you're into minimalism. You find a quiet bench near a plum tree, unwrap the bundle carefully, and enjoy the moment. The rice is slightly cool by now, the pickled plum sharp enough to make your mouth water. It's not Instagram-worthy, but it satisfies in a way fast food never could. Nearby, an elderly man naps against a tree, his mouth open slightly, his straw hat tipped over his eyes. It's a vision of peace. You don't envy him. Not exactly. But you do take a long breath and enjoy the stillness. Midday in Edo has a different kind of rhythms, lower, almost suspended. Most work pauses during the hottest hour. Shops close their shutters for a break. Even the crows get quieter. If you're home during this time, you might recline on the floorboards with a wet cloth across your forehead, listening to the lazy drone of summer insects and the occasional wind chime. Of course, this depends on the season. During cooler months, you'd be tucked close to a fire, perhaps sipping roasted tea while warming your hands on a clay brazier. But in the heat of summer, you hide from the sun like a vampire with paper-thin dignity. Samurai or not, you're still human. Speaking of seasonality, Edo life was deeply governed by it. There weren't just summer and winter clothes. There were summer and winter activities, foods, rituals. People adjusted their waking and sleeping patterns with the shifting light. For samurai, seasonal discipline meant proper etiquette. Wearing lined robes in summer? Social faux pas. Using the wrong incense blend in a winter gathering? Practically scandalous. You head back toward your office, and on the way, you pass a tea house. A slender wooden structure with bamboo blinds and a painted sign. The aroma of roasted tea leaves wafts through the open doorway, earthy and sweet. You pause, consider it, then decide, 5 minutes. Just 5. Inside, a young woman bows and serves you a cup with practiced grace. The tea is warm, slightly smoky, and barely sweet. It doesn't wake you up like coffee. It grounds you. You sip slowly, the ceramic warm between your palms, your eyes drifting to the movement outside. A child chasing a dragonfly, a blind master tapping his cane, a monk sweeping temple stones. This is the lull in the samurai's day, the midpoint between duty and rest, a sacred softness between the rougher parts of life. And then, you hear a faint chime of a distant bell. Not a temple bell this time, but the Hayashijituo wooden blocks clapped together, carried by a city official. This isn't timekeeping. It's warning. Somewhere in the city, a fire's been spotted. You stand, finish your tea, and step into the street. No panic, not yet. Fires were a daily threat in Edo, a city of wooden buildings and tightly packed homes. The samurai's role here wasn't just to fight, but to organize, direct, and assist the Hikeshide fire brigades. You jogged toward the commotion, robes flapping slightly, sandals thumping against the ground. When you arrive, the fire's already dying down a thatched roof, scorched but not consumed. Buckets were passed quickly. Neighbors helped. The samurai presence was less about putting out flames and more about calming nerves, assessing damage, and keeping order. You speak with the homeowners, inspect the site, record the incident on a small wooden tablet. Then you move on. Historians still argue whether samurai were effective civic leaders or symbolic figureheads when it came to day-to-day crisis management. Some records suggest they were highly engaged. Others paint a picture of aloof oversight. Either way, they were expected to appear when needed, and today, you've done just that. You make your final stop of the afternoon at a local magistrate station. You present your report, bow politely, and exchange a few respectful words. The heat of the day is softening. Your shift is nearing its end. The sky is deepening to amber, and the shadows begin to stretch long across the road. You don't head home just yet. There's one more ritual, just for you: a slow walk through the garden behind the station. It's not large, not grand. Just a quiet rectangle of moss, stone, and water. You trace its edge slowly, hands behind your back, mind drifting. It's not meditation. Not exactly, but close enough. And as you pause near a small rock lantern and watch a carp slip silently through the shallow pond, you feel it again, that strange peace that comes not from perfection, but from alignment, from things being as they should. You exhale, just once, and begin the walk back home. You return home at a gentle pace, your footsteps in time with the hush of late afternoon. The sun is still warm, but its fire has mellowed into a kind of honeyed glow, casting long golden stripes across the narrow streets of Edo. Shadows stretch like yawns, and the sounds of the city begin to soften, less clatter, more murmur. Your robes are dusted with the day, your sandals scuffed at the edges, your shoulders slightly hunched, not from fatigue, but from that quiet satisfaction that only comes from doing exactly what was needed, no more, no less. When you slide open the wooden door to your home, the scent of cool wood and faint incense greets you first, maybe a trace of sandalwood or pine. It clings to the air, woven into the grain of the beams, comforting like a childhood blanket you'd never admit to still owning. Your wife, or perhaps your aging mother, nods a silent welcome from the corner. No dramatic greetings here, just familiarity, domestic calm, and perhaps the soft creak of a floorboard acknowledging your return. And here, behind the veil of duty and decorum, the samurai finally becomes a little more human. You carefully place your swords on their wooden stand. Not tossed, not leaned. Placed. That gesture alone says the day is over. The weapons no longer need to be an extension of your spine. They can rest. And so can you. Now begins what scholars sometimes call Yagata no Jikanthe evening window. Not an official term, but the concept is real. This is the phase where domestic life resumes. Meals are prepared, stories are exchanged, clothes are changed out, and the rituals of winding down begin. You shed your more formal robes for a soft cotton yukata, the kind with faded patterns that only family ever sees. It's a relief, like slipping into your pajamas after a long conference call, except with fewer spreadsheets and a much cooler outfit. Evening meals in Edo samurai homes were usually quiet affairs. Don't expect grand banquets or theatrical dishes. More rice, some stewed vegetable steak in lotus root, perhaps a bit of tofu simmered in broth. If it's a lucky day, there might be a sliver of grilled mackerel. And always, pickles. Always. You sit on tatami mats, knees folded, chopsticks held with deliberate grace, even when you're alone. Slurping isn't rude. It's expected. The warm broth quiets something inside your chest. Maybe your stomach. Maybe your mind. Historians still argue whether samurai families shared meals every night, or if duties often scattered them across schedules. Evidence suggests that in lower-ranking households, the communal meal was a cherished anchor, however modest the fare. Here, in your home, you eat in peace. No lectures, no courtly debates. Just the rhythmic clink of dish against dish, the crunch of pickled radish, and the occasional sip of tepid tea. Afterward, you step outside again, but this time, to the garden. Almost every samurai home had at least a modest patch of green, even in the denser wards of Edo. A few stepping stones, a trickle of water from a bamboo spout, maybe a dwarf pine or two trained to grow in elegant defiance of nature. You sit beneath the eaves, watching the sky shift from gold to rose to ink. Fireflies begin their gentle orbit, and a breeze rustles the leaves in that soft, whispered language that doesn't need translating. You don't do much. That's the point. The evening quiet was sacred, not to be filled, but to be honored. There's a phrase from Zen philosophy, the space between things. Samurai didn't always talk about it, but they lived it. That little pause between obligations. That breath before the bow. That stretch of evening where you're allowed just briefly not to be anyone in particular. Your hands rest loosely in your lap. Maybe you reach for a small charcoal sketch you've been working on, a rock, a tree branch, the way moonlight touches a roof tile. Samurai were expected to practice not just martial skills, but also cultural refinement, calligraphy, poetry, music, painting. Not as hobbies, as obligations of class. And let's be honest, some were terrible at it. There's a poem from the 1700s written by a provincial samurai that reads, more or less, frog jumps / I think about swords / splash. Inspiring stuff. Still, the effort mattered. Beauty was part of discipline. So maybe you scratch out a haiku. Or maybe you just watch a moth flicker near the lamp. Either way, the moment is full. Then, it's bath time. The evening bath wasn't a luxury, it was a daily ritual, sometimes shared communally at public bathhouses, sometimes taken privately at home. In your case, the wooden furrow has already been filled. The water is warm, almost startling at first. You lower yourself and slowly, careful not to splash, letting the heat unfurl your muscles like silk unrolling on a lacquered table. The bath isn't for washing. That's done beforehand with cold water and a cloth. The bath is for soaking, for surrendering the weight of the day. Your eyes half close. Your breath deepens. You're not quite asleep, but your thoughts are soft, blurry at the edges. By now, the city outside is quieted. The streets are mostly empty, save for the slow walk of the night watchman, tapping his clappers as he moves past alleys and storefronts. The final bell rings. Lanterns are extinguished one by one, until only the faintest glow remains, leaking through paper screens like moonlight through lace. You step from the bath, dry off with rough cotton, and return to your room. The futon has been rolled out. A single candle flickers. The air smells faintly of camellia oil and burnt wick. You kneel, then lie back slowly, arms by your sides. The ceiling is a plain lattice of wood beams. You've seen it every night, but tonight it feels lighter. Your body remembers the day, the walking, the bowing, the lifting, the sitting, the small negotiations, the taste of pickled plum, the soft give of tatami underfoot. And slowly, your breath begins to sync with it all. The rituals have carried you back. From formality to familiarity. From city noise to garden hush. From posture to rest. But just before you let go, your eyes still half open, a quiet thought flits across your mind like a paper crane caught in a breeze. Did the frog ever come back? Maybe. Maybe not. But for now, the splash is enough. Night settles into your home like a slow wave. Not crashing, just folding gently over the edges of everything. Your futon cradles your spine, and the woven fibers beneath your head smell faintly of straw and years of use. Outside, the world is muted. Not silent, but comfortably dim, as if someone has turned the volume down on life. You're not asleep yet. Not quite. The house isn't either. In Edo-period samurai homes, the night carried its own rhythm, structured, yet soft. The flicker of candlelight in one room, the faint creak of a floorboard as someone walks past to fetch water, the hum of crickets in the garden blending with the distant sound of a bamboo water spout tipping and clicking back into place. These are your lullabies. You lie there, eyes open just enough to catch the play of shadow and flame on the paper screen walls, and allow yourself a rare luxury, stillness. But don't get too comfortable yet. The night is when reflection begins. For many samurai, evening was the time to journal, to read, to compose poetry, or to review moral lessons from the Hagakure or the Book of Five Rings. That's right. Bedtime reading in samurai culture didn't involve soft fiction or soothing stories about cuddly foxes. It involved sharp declarations like, "The way of the warrior is death." Not exactly lullaby material. Still, this study wasn't about glorifying violence. It was about introspection. Samurai were trained to hold mortality Classido stare it down, to make peace with it, to use it as a sharpening stone for living well. As strange as it sounds, this nighttime reckoning brought many warriors a deep sense of calm. You imagine unrolling a scroll, brushing a few kanji into the empty space, pausing between strokes as if each thought might evaporate if hurried. Historians still argue whether these personal reflections were genuinely practiced daily, or if the surviving writings we have represent idealized accounts from those with leisure time. Either way, the idea that the samurai ended their day not with entertainment, but with contemplation, has persisted for generations. Eventually, the candle gutters out with a quiet hiss, and you're left with the soft murmur of the house again. There's something curiously timeless about this moment. You, horizontal on a futon, the ghosts of 1,000 evenings stacked like thin pages between now and then. And just when you think sleep has finally come, something stirs. It's faint, but familiar. The slow, rhythmic knock of wooden clappers down the lane. The night watchman again Yojimbo, in some districts. He calls out a phrase, something about the hour and the weather. You can't catch every word, but it's comforting. Like someone's keeping score while you rest. His rounds are part timekeeper, part crime deterrent, part lullaby. His job? To make sure fires don't spark and thieves don't creep, but also to remind everyone in the city that yes, it's late, and yes, it's safe to sleep. Think of it as Edo's version of a white noise machine with sandals. But the night isn't just peaceful walks and poetic musings. Not always. If you're a samurai on duty stationed at a checkpoint or standing guard, you might spend the entire night awake. Rotating watch shifts were common among lower-ranking retainers. You'd stand beneath the eaves of a gate, bundled against the wind, spear upright, squinting into the dark. Not glamorous, just necessary, especially during festival nights or periods of political tension. Tonight, you're off duty. But you remember those nights, the hum of cicadas replaced by wind rustling the trees, the ache of holding still, the occasional jolt of adrenaline when a drunk merchant stumbles too close and starts a commotion. Back home now, you listen to the hush instead, the way your breath syncs with the sounds around you. The distant cough of an old neighbor, a dog barking once, then quiet, a door sliding shut with a finality that means enough for today. And then there's the dreaming. While there's limited recorded evidence of samurai dream interpretation, personal diaries sometimes hint at it. A dream of water could signal unease. A dream of swords might be a call to discipline. One famous tale describes a samurai who dreamed he was a crane, flying high above the city. When he woke, he renounced violence and became a monk. You wonder what you'll dream tonight. Probably something less dramatic. Perhaps the taste of that pickled plum, or that frog from earlier, still splashing. You shift on the futon, seeking a cooler corner. The moonlight is stronger now, painting soft silver shapes across the tatami. Your mind drifts to your sword. Not in a martial way, but in the way one might think of an old friend resting nearby, within reach, but not needed. Not tonight. You think, too, of the people who sleep near you, your family, your neighbors, the city beyond. An entire world resting in wooden rooms and straw-matted floors. You wonder how many others are lying awake like you, staring at ceilings, waiting for thoughts to stop echoing. Outside, the wind changes direction. The lantern sways slightly. Somewhere, water drips with irregular rhythm from a rooftop. You blink, eyes heavy now, the thoughts softening. And finally your body begins to sink. Not down, but inward. Like folding into warm cotton. Like fading gently into a fog you don't need to navigate. You don't dream yet. You don't move. But if someone were watching, they'd say, there he goes. The samurai sleeps. You wake before the sun. Not because of an alarm. Not because someone shakes you. But because something in your body just knows. The air is still cool and close. And outside, the world hasn't fully reassembled itself yet. It's that strange pre-dawn hour when reality feels uncertain and everything seems half-dreamed. You lie there for a few moments, blinking into the dimness, wrapped in a kind of hush you could almost mistake for still being asleep. But then the first sound arrives, soft and familiar. A rooster somewhere in the distance. Then another. Then the creak of a neighbor's door, the wooden clack of get a sandals on stone. Edo is starting to stir. Your house is still mostly dark. The paper walls are painted a pale, cool gray, touched at their edges by the earliest light. You sit up slowly. No stretching and yawning theatrically like you're in a toothpaste commercial. Just a silent shift from lying to sitting, the way you've done 1,000 times. Samurai mornings in the Edo period began early not because of busyness, but because of rhythm. The schedule of a samurai was built around balance, duty, study, discipline, and just enough peace to make sense of it all. You roll your futon with practiced hands, fold your blanket precisely, and set it aside. No servants do this for you unless you're quite high up the chain. For most samurai, especially those of middle or lower status, household chores are shared. There's no shame in sweeping your own floor or pumping your own well water. In fact, there's something oddly satisfying about it. You open a shutter and let the faintest blush of sunrise bleed across the room. Gold on wood, light through rice paper. Then you kneel. It's not for prayer, not exactly. It's a moment of stillness. You place your hands lightly on your thighs and breathe deeply. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Just a few quiet inhales to center yourself before the day begins. You're not asking the gods for anything. You're simply reminding your body it exists. This might be followed by a recitation from Gorin no Shomiyamoto Musashi's famous treatise, or perhaps from a family-cherished code of conduct. A few whispered lines. The kind of thing you wouldn't say out loud at the market, but hold close like a folded charm in your sleeve. Historians still argue whether most samurai practiced these morning rituals daily, or whether they were more aspirational than routine. Some diaries suggest it was a generational thing. Older samurai held to it fiercely. Younger ones occasionally fumbled their way through, still half asleep and craving rice. Speaking of rice, breakfast. You make your way to the kitchen, if it can be called that. A simple cooking space, tucked in a back corner of the house. Clay hearth, wooden shelves, maybe a metal kettle hanging from a soot-darkened hook. The morning meal isn't extravagant. Rice, miso soup, perhaps a little grilled fish if there's any leftover from the night before. Maybe a raw egg to crack over your bowl and mix in. Pickled plums again. They never leave you alone. You chew quietly, grateful for the warmth. The soup fills your chest like a second breath. Your chopsticks move with care. Even in something as basic as breakfast, you honor the act. After eating, it's time for grooming. And yes, samurai were fairly meticulous about their appearance. That whole disheveled warrior look. Only for battle or travel. At home, everything had its place. You wash your face with cold water drawn from a ceramic basin. No mirrors, unless you're wealthy. Just touch and familiarity. You run a comb through your hair, pulling it up into the tidy chomage top, not tight, precise, smooth back with a touch of camellia oil. It smells faintly floral, a scent that doesn't match your stern expression but is oddly comforting nonetheless. Then the clothes. You slip into your everyday kimono, simple, usually indigo or gray. The fabric soft from wear, the sleeves loose but not sloppy. Over this, a hakamatho's pleated, skirt-like trousers that make sitting a calculated art form. Your swords are next. The wakizashi first, shorter and closer to the body. Then the katana, larger, worn edge up and always to the left. There's a moment, every morning, when the sword settles against your hip and the day officially begins. A soft click of scabbard against obi, like turning on the ignition of a car, if cars had souls and social rules attached to them. Now the house stirs with more life. Children, if you have them, begin their morning lessons. A wife or younger sibling may be tending the garden, watering small herbs, or gathering daikon. The sound of water splashing, the rustle of sleeves, the quiet murmur of greetings shared in passing, all of it weaves into the tapestry of the morning. And beyond your own walls, the neighborhood awakens. Vendors haul their carts down the narrow lanes. A tofu seller calls out in a rhythmic chant. A woman sweeps the street in front of her home, bamboo broom tapping lightly against the stones. A group of young samurai apprentices pass by, their chatter hushed but energetic. Everyone is moving, but not rushed. There's no frantic rush hour here. You're not scheduled for patrol this morning, so your time is yours for now. You step out into the street, adjusting your swords slightly for comfort. The morning air is clean, almost sweet. You walk slowly, not aimlessly, but not with urgency either. Perhaps you visit a nearby shrine. Light a stick of incense. Bow twice, clap twice, bow again. Not for luck, but for clarity. A crow watches you from a rooftop. Another calls in the distance. You'd be lying if you said they didn't look a little smug. Crows in Edo were basically neighborhood gossips with wings. By the time you return home, the sun is higher, the city brighter. The chores have been done. The household settled into its morning rhythm. You've got some scrolls to copy or a meeting to attend at your lord's residence, but you'll get there. Eventually. Because in this moment, for just a few minutes more, you allow yourself the stillness of the early day. The pause before the gears fully engage. A samurai's strength isn't just in his sword. It's in the way he carries each hour. Even this one. By late morning, the tempo of your day picks up not with chaos, but with purpose. The samurai life isn't built on frenzy. It runs on precision, discipline, and just enough bureaucracy to remind you that swords aren't always the sharpest tool in the shed. Paperwork? Oh yes. Even warriors deal with it. You've got a summons to your domain lord's compound, a modest estate, tucked among the winding alleys of your ward. The walk there is deliberate. Edo streets don't really rush, but they do ripple with constant motion. Merchants arrange stalls, farmers wheel in crates of produce, and groups of students in matching attire scurry toward their temple schools, books strapped securely across their backs. You nod politely as you pass, others never bowing unless necessary. A samurai's posture in public is somewhere between calm and coiled. You're not aggressive, but you're unmistakably alert. People give you space, not out of fear necessarily, but because that's just how the layers of society are arranged. The estate's outer gates rise ahead, sturdy and unadorned. Inside, you're greeted by a fellow retainer, someone you trained with, maybe. There's a moment of eye contact. Brief. Respectful. Then he leads you down a cool corridor, where tatami mats mute your footsteps and the smell of old cedar hangs in the air. Your lord is not a grand daimyo, but a minor noble tasked with overseeing a district of Edo. He's not lounging on a throne. He sits on a zabuton, robes immaculate, posture flawless. You bow deeply. He acknowledges you with a nod and gestures for you to kneel. Today's discussion? Land disputes between two farmer families. Not thrilling, but important. You're expected to listen, record notes, and offer a recommendation if prompted. This, too, is the duty of a samurai, not just fighting, but mediating, governing, maintaining order. You're not a thug with a sword. You're the glue that keeps the structure of Tokugawa society from peeling apart. Historians still argue whether all samurai truly embraced this civil administrative role or whether many longed for a return to the battlefield. After all, it's hard to feel epic when you're settling boundary lines over radish fields. The meeting stretches on. You sip tea between observations. Every motion is deliberate. Every word is measured. And somewhere in the middle of a heated discussion about canal runoff, you stifle a yawn. Not from boredom, okay. Maybe a little, but because your body still remembers the serenity of the night. Your morning rhythm was gentle, and now the formality of the day feels almost too symmetrical, like living inside a scroll painting. When your duty here is finished, you rise, bow again, and take your leave. No fanfare, just quiet competence. Outside, the light has shifted. The sun hangs higher now, casting a brilliant glare off the tiled roofs. You squint as you re-enter the streets, adjusting your stride, letting the wind hit your face and clear your head. You consider lunch. Sometimes it's prepared at home, but other times you might stop at a roadside stall, a bowl of soba noodles, maybe. Warm, salty, with green onions and a little splash of soy. You stand to eat it, slurping quickly as etiquette allows. The man next to you, a carpenter judging by the sawdust on his sleeves, gives you a nod of solidarity. Nothing bonds strangers like soup. You finish your meal and wipe your mouth with a sleeve. No napkins here. The stall owner bows. You nod and drop a few coins into the box. Simple, efficient, satisfying. The streets remain lively, but never crowded in the way you imagine modern cities might be. People move with purpose, not panic. You stop briefly by a calligraphy shop. The owner is a friend, and you exchange pleasantries. He shows you a new brush boar hair bristles, light bamboo handle. You test its balance in your hand. Smooth. Elegant. Maybe you'll return tomorrow and buy it. For now, there's an hour of personal study. Back home, you unroll a worn scroll and read from a classic text, perhaps the Analects of Confucius, or a Zen treatise about impermanence. The characters flow like water across the page. You mouth the words softly, letting their rhythm imprint on your mind. You pause halfway through, brush in hand. You take a clean scrap of washi paper and begin copying a short poem you've committed to memory. On the still pawn's face, The moon rests until the wind reminds it to move. It's not yours originally, but it feels like yours now. The brush strokes calm your breathing. The words linger in your chest like incense smoke. Then a sound breaks the stillness. Children's laughter outside. You smile. In some ways, that might be the most reassuring sound in Edo. Not the crackle of a fire, not the clang of a bell, just joy. Alive and bouncing off the wooden walls of the city. Later, you help a younger sibling or apprentice practice martial kata. The movements are fluid, repetitive, almost meditative. The wooden practice sword feels light in your hand after years of training. You demonstrate the stance again. Remind them to breathe. Again and again. Repetition isn't dull, it's a sculptor. Every strike a chip off the marble of clumsiness. A curious tidbit? There are old records suggesting some Edo samurai practiced their forms while reciting poetry. Swordplay as rhythm, breath as verse. It's a bit theatrical, maybe, but you can see the appeal. There's something elegant about blending the art of war with the art of words. Even if your poetry rhymes blade with fade, it's the effort that counts. As the afternoon stretches on, the sun dips slightly, casting warm amber tones across your garden. You sip another cup of tea, this one brewed slower, richer, and allow yourself a moment of pause. The duties of the day have been met. The next will come soon enough. You look down at your hand, still calloused from training, still steady despite everything. The fingers that held a brush now rest on the hilt of your sword. Different tools, same purpose. You don't feel heroic, but you feel anchored. And in a city like Edo, that's more than enough. By the time late afternoon settles over the city, Edo begins to exhale. The day's heat has softened, shadows lengthen, and the light takes on a golden hue that makes even alley cats look noble. You feel it in your own body too, that loosening of the spine, the slight sag of muscles that have held you upright and proper since sunrise. But don't get too comfortable yet. The samurai schedule still has a few more beats to strike before evening can fully arrive. There's patrol duty tonight. You receive word with the quiet efficiency of Edo-era communication. A verbal message relayed through a junior retainer, perhaps, or a chalk mark left on a wooden board. No paper memo, no inbox, just rhythm and routine and the understanding that if you're scheduled, you show up. If you don't, well, you won't exactly be welcomed with fanfare at your next inspection. Your blades are already with you, of course never far from your hip. But you also retrieve a paper lantern with a folding wooden frame, a small pouch of rice crackers to keep your stomach in check, and a damp cloth to wipe your brow. It might be cooler than midday, but patrols can still work up a sweat. There's no armor tonight, just your hakama, a lighter jacket tied snugly, and a quiet resolve. You meet your fellow patrolman near the district's central watchtower, an unassuming two-story wooden structure perched on a corner street like a sleepy guard dog. The sun dips lower, catching in the folds of your sleeves. You bow in greeting, check equipment, confirm the route. Edo City patrols known as Makibugyo duties weren't just about catching criminals. They were about presence, visibility, a reminder that the city had eyes, ears, and if necessary, swords. Your job is to keep the peace, which on a good day means preventing conflict rather than dealing with it. On a bad day, it means drawing your blade with the calm certainty of someone who's done it before. Historians still argue how common actual conflict was during these patrols. Some say Edo was surprisingly well behaved, with citizens more afraid of losing face than of committing crimes. Others suggest that thefts, brawls, and illicit gambling houses kept samurai busy after dark. Either way, you stay alert. You set off as dusk descends. Your lantern glows with a soft, orange flicker. It doesn't light the street like a spotlight, more like a firefly, helping you feel a little less alone. The streets are quieter now. Shop fronts are shuttering, the vendors packing their goods, the smell of grilled fish giving way to incense, and the sweet smoke of evening hearths. You pass a group of children skipping rope in the fading light, their voices rising in sing-song rhythm. An elderly man pulls closed the shutters on his calligraphy shop, nodding as you pass. You nod back. Then you round a corner and find someone where they shouldn't be. A man, mid-30s, sitting cross-legged in the alley behind a sake house. He's not doing anything violent, just drunk. Too drunk to find his way home. His eyes blink unevenly. He waves at you, cheerful and entirely unconcerned by the sword at your hip. "Good evening, sir," he slurs. "Am I in trouble?" You sigh, crouch beside him, and offer a sip of water from your flask. He takes it, spills half on his robe, and smiles as though you've given him a treasure. You help him to his feet. His legs work like old bamboo bendy, but not broken. You walk him a few blocks to his home, where his wife bows deeply, embarrassed, and offers you a wrapped rice ball in thanks. You decline politely. This is part of the job. Back on patrol, the city feels heavier. Night has truly arrived. The sky above Edo isn't starless, but it's not dazzling either. Candle smoke and hearth ash blur the stars into soft smudges. Still, the moon is high, a silver coin tossed onto indigo silk. You hear a flute in the distance, some street performer finishing their twilight routine. The melody is slow, almost melancholy, and it trails off as you walk by a canal, where the water reflects your lantern in trembling ribbons. There's a quirky detail about these patrols. Some samurai, it's said, would recite haiku to themselves as they walked. Not aloud, not theatrically, just softly, a rhythm to match the pace of their steps. It helped to stay awake, to stay present. Maybe you do that now. A short verse flickers into your mind, unbidden. The lantern flickers. Footsteps echo down alleys, where dreams haven't slept. Is it any good? Who knows? But it helps the silence feel less empty. Midway through the route, you pause at a small crossroads, where 3 lanterns swing gently in the night breeze. You sip from your water flask again and listen. Not for anything specific. Just listen. And then you hear it. The faint scuff of something behind a stack of crates. Too soft for an animal. Too quick for a vagrant. You gesture silently to your companion. He nods. You draw your wakizashi slowly, not the katana. This doesn't feel like a duel. You step around the crates and find a boy, maybe 12, holding a stolen melon. His eyes wide, his hands trembling. You lower your blade. What's your name? You ask softly. He stammers. Tells you. You squat beside him, and without accusation, without anger, you ask why. He hasn't eaten today. His mother is sick. You nod slowly. You take the melon from his hand, then break it in half, and offer him one half back. Don't do it again, you say? There are better ways. Next time, ask. He nods, tears welling. You guide him home, just like the drunk man earlier, but this time it tugs at something deeper in your chest. The world isn't always kind, but sometimes a samurai is the bridge between cruelty and compassion. By the time you return to the tower, the patrol is over. The city sleeps, or at least pretends to. You set down your lantern, stretch your back, and breathe deeply. Your feet are sore, your eyes tired, but your heart somehow feels fuller than it did this morning. You walk home in silence. Not because you're solemn, but because words would just clutter the peace. Your home awaits, dimly lit, warm from within. You slide open the door and step inside. Duty complete. For now. Back home now, and the weight of the day slowly lifts off your shoulders, like removing a heavy robe thread by thread. You ease out of your sandals, letting your bare feet settle into the cool, worn planks of your entryway. The quiet indoors feels deeper after the distant chatter of patrol and the constant hum of Edo's streets. You're not quite ready for bed, but the evening has definitely begun to exhale. In the kitchen, a lamp flickers softly. Someone, your spouse, sibling, or maybe a housekeeper, has left a bowl of miso soup covered for you, still warm. You sit down slowly, letting your knees sigh, and begin your modest meal. It's not a feast, but it's comforting. Fermented soybean broth, strips of tofu, wakame seaweed, and that comforting, earthy flavor that somehow makes you feel more human after a long day of being a pillar of order. You sip slowly, letting the heat soothe your throat and loosen your shoulders. There's a satisfying sort of fatigue now. Not exhaustion, not burnout. Just the pleasant ache of having been useful. After dinner, there's a moment for small conversation, soft voices under low ceilings. Perhaps you ask after someone's garden, or your neighbor's new kitten, or how many leeks the merchant tried to sneak past weighing today. It's not important, and that's the point. After the structure of duty, it's these little unguarded exchanges that refill your soul. You clean your dishes without fuss, stacking them neatly by the basin. Water is precious. You use it wisely, quietly. Then comes one of your favorite parts of the evening, bathing. Edo samurai often had access to small wooden bathtubs at home, but if not, they'd visit public baths as sento. You're fortunate enough to have a tub of your own, hewn from fragrant cypress, tucked into a corner room just large enough to hold it. You slide the door shut behind you, strip down, and settle into a squat to wash. Soap as we know it doesn't exist yet. Instead, you scrub yourself with a cloth and warm water, maybe adding a bit of rice bran or ash for a mild exfoliation. It's not glamorous, but it's effective. You work from limbs to core methodical, mindful rinsing each area with a dipper. Then, finally, the soak. You lower yourself into the hot water with a sigh that could melt steel. The heat envelopes you, steam curling up to fog the tiny square window. This isn't just hygienite's ritual. You sit there, submerged to the chest, eyes half-lidded, breathing slow and even. You think about nothing and everything. The boy with the melon. The texture of rice paper under your brush. The way the moonlight made the canal shimmer like lacquered silk. And then your mind goes quiet. One quirky tidbit. It said some Edo-era samurai carried waterproof wooden writing slates into the bath just in case inspiration struck mid-soak. Imagine that, composing tanka while pruning. Historians still debate how widespread home baths were, especially among lower-ranked samurai. Some argue they were a rare luxury. Others believe that, by the 18th century, even modest samurai households prioritized bathing culture, seeing it as an extension of mental clarity and self-discipline. Either way, you feel profoundly grateful right now. Eventually, the heat becomes too much. You rise slowly, water cascading down your body like rain over a temple roof. You dry yourself with a coarse towel and pull on a fresh, unlined kimono, soft, clean, and just the right amount of worn. You leave the bath chamber with skin flushed, joints loosened, and thoughts settled. The rest of the household is quiet now. Candles are being snuffed. You walk barefoot through the dim corridor, passing a small shrine in the alcove. You pause, bow once, hands together not out of show, but out of habit. Gratitude, protection, remembrance. Even samurai pray. Especially samurai. In your room, the futon has been laid out on the tatami. It's not extravagant, but it's comfortable. A cotton-stuffed mattress with a folded quilt, a firm wooden pillow wrapped in cloth. You sit beside it and begin your nightly katanat with a sword, but with breath. You kneel, close your eyes, and practice mokuso, a form of seated meditation common among samurai. You focus on your inhalation, your exhalation, letting thoughts drift in and out like dragonflies. You don't try to empty your mind. You just don't chase it either. The air is still. Your body, freshly bathed, radiates calm warmth. There's a faint sound from outside, dia bamboo wind chime, maybe, or just the occasional whisper of a breeze rattling paper screens. The night has a texture to it now, gentle, velvet-like. When you open your eyes again, you stretch out on the futon. You adjust the quilt, shift your shoulders, let your arms settle just right. And before letting yourself drift, you stare for a moment at the ceiling wooden beams casting shadows like tree limbs. You recall a line from a poem you read earlier in the week. Not even the whole thing, just the end. And I sleep, blade by breath, dream by silence. It's silly maybe, but comforting. You breathe it in. One final detail, your sword. It lies nearby, within arm's reach. Not because you expect danger, but because that's how it's always been. It rests as you Dorothy, patient, part of you. You close your eyes. The house creaks. The city exhales. The stars, somewhere behind all that lamp smoke, twinkle half-heartedly. And you? You drift. You wake before dawn. Not to an alarm clock, of course. There's no jarring beeping, no glowing numbers. Just a feeling, a subtle shift in the air. The silence of the house has changed, gone from heavy and unmoving to lightly poised, as if even the walls are holding their breath for the sun. You lie there a moment longer, the quilt still warm over you, your arms tucked in. Then you shift your weight gently, rise, and fold the bedding with a kind of reverence. It's muscle memory now, tidy futon, squared edges, and a quiet pat to settle everything down. You're not rushing. The morning is yours. Stepping onto the tatami, your feet are greeted by the lingering coolness of night. You roll your shoulders, tilt your head side to side. A few stiff clicks echo softly in the stillness. No audience, just the daily reset. The city outside hasn't quite woken either. You slide open the shoji screen just enough to let in a breeze. Somewhere, a rooster gives a self-important crow. From another direction comes the faint clatter of a fishmonger preparing his cart. Edo doesn't roar, a waikite gradually stirs, like rice simmering in a pot. Your first act? Tea. You kneel before the low hearth where a small kettle rests. The embers were banked last night and still radiate a gentle heat. You coax the fire back to life with practiced ease and no need for drama. Just a steady hand and a breath or two. The kettle begins to hum, and the room fills with the scent of charred cedar and boiling water. You pour it over finely crushed tea leaves in a ceramic cup. No whisk. No formal ceremony. This isn't a guest ritual, it's your own. You sip slowly. The bitterness wakes your senses. The warmth settles your stomach. And for a moment, you simply sit there, cup in hand, as the sky outside begins to bleed from indigo to gray. One curious detail: many samurai rose hours before full sunrise not because they were morning people, but because their societal structure expected it. Sleeping in could be interpreted as slothful, an offense to one's honor. So even if your bones ache and your dreams were good, duty pulls you up. Always has. You step outside briefly to breathe in the air. It smells of dew, old wood, distant charcoal fires, and a hint of something sweet, perhaps plum blossoms on the breeze. Your neighbors are doing the same thing. You nod to an older man washing his porch with a bamboo ladle. He nods back. No words exchanged. None needed. Back inside, it's time for morning calisthenics. Not a gym routine, not exactly, but a discipline. You begin with basic sword stances, scama flowing between them like water over smooth stones. Forward, back, draw, cut, res heath. Again. The floor creaks beneath your feet as you repeat these motions, slow and controlled. There's a calming rhythm to it, like the day is clicking into gear with each silent strike. Historians still debate the role of sword practice in daily samurai life. Some claim it was ritualized, largely symbolic. Others insist it was essential, a literal sharpening of the spirit through repetition. But standing there now, sweating lightly as you flow through one last diagonal cut, it doesn't feel symbolic. It feels real, necessary. By the time you're finished, the sun has just crested the rooftops, casting long, golden lines across the tatami. You wipe your brow with a cloth, sit back down, and open your copybook. Today's entry? Something simple. You dip your brush into the inkstone and begin writing a short reflection. Even the silent floor holds stories beneath each footfall. It's not brilliant, but it's honest. And that's enough. After journaling, there's breakfast. You prepare it with quiet efficiency. A bowl of rice steamed from the night before, still slightly warm. Pickled vegetables arranged neatly in a dish. A sliver of grilled mackerel, flaky and aromatic. And a raw egg, cracked carefully over the rice, to be mixed with soy sauce and eaten while the steam curls upward like incense. You eat slowly. You chew mindfully. Nothing about this is rushed. As you eat, you glance toward the window where the light has now shifted fully into morning. People begin to pass in the street: merchants, messengers, an old woman with a bundle of herbs tied to her back. You recognize some of them. You'll likely see them again this afternoon. Maybe even tonight. There's a knock at the door. You rise to answer it, and standing there is a young boy, perhaps a neighbor's apprentice or one of the district's message runners. He bows deeply and hands you a small scroll. You thank him, offer a plum candy in return, and close the door. Unrolling the scroll, you see what you expected: your assignment for the day. It's brief, written in tight brushstrokes. You'll need to report to your lord's estate by mid-morning for a task involving guest supervision. Nothing unusual, but it does require full attire. You set the scroll aside and begin preparations. There's something oddly comforting about how structured everything is. Predictable. Not in a boring way, more like a well-written haiku. Everything has its place, its purpose, its rhythm. You dress deliberately, first the underrobe, then the hakama, tying each strap snugly with a firm pull. The overrobe follows, layered just so. You check your reflection in the polished metal mirror, not out of vanity, but to ensure every fold is correct, every crease clean. Your sword's katana and wakizashi are placed into your obi. Their weight at your side is familiar. Expected. Before leaving, you pause at the doorway, bow toward the family altar, and mutter a brief invocation for clarity and calm. Not because you expect danger today, but because you never know. Then, sliding the door shut behind you, you step out into the brightening day. And even though you've lived this morning dozens, maybe hundreds of times before, it never feels routine. It feels like readiness. You walk with quiet purpose through the waking streets of Edo. your sandals tapping softly on stone and packed dirt. The city is alive, now fully unfurled, like a painted screen being pulled open in one smooth sweep. Vendors call out with practiced enthusiasm, touting bundles of green onions or freshly grilled rice cakes. Paper lanterns swing in the breeze above narrow alleys, catching the light just enough to glint. You nod to familiar face, an elderly noodle seller, a sleepy apprentice still rubbing his eyes, a girl with a sparrow in a cage slung from her sash. You don't rush. Samurai don't rush. You arrive when you mean to, and you walk like the city knows your pace. Your destination is a mid-tier estate, not quite opulent, but respectable, walled and well-kept, with a manicured garden that smells faintly of pine and moist earth. You're greeted by a servant who bows and motions you inside, where you're asked to wait in a small room with sliding screens depicting waves and cranes. Today's assignment is light on drama. Oversee a merchant delegation while they speak with your Lord Steward. You're not here to threaten Anyana, you're here as presence. Authority. Polite. Respectful. Absolutely prepared to draw your sword, but hopefully not needed to. You take your place behind the steward, arms folded in your sleeves, posture immaculate. The merchants are nervous, of course. They always are. Your gaze is steady but not unkind. You listen as they present their ledgers and requests, voice shaking ever so slightly. One offers you a bow between statements. You incline your head but don't speak. That would break the spell. The meeting ends with respectful murmurs and a few stamped papers. As the merchants shuffle out, one glances back at you, not fearfully, more like with relief. You didn't move, but your presence shaped the air in the room. That's the quiet power of your role. Now you're dismissed. And though you're no stranger to long assignments, you find a small pleasure in having the afternoon to yourself. You return home by a more scenic route, weaving through Edo's quieter backstreets. Children chase each other with kites made of old rice paper. A monk rings a handbell as he walks, head bowed, bowl outstretched. The scent of grilled eel wafts from a stall you pass, and your stomach reminds you that it's been hours since breakfast. You stop at a food stand and purchase a skewer of sweetened dango. The vendor smiles with crooked teeth and sprinkles sesame over the top. You thank him with a small bow, then step aside to eat it under a cherry tree, blossoms just beginning to shed like soft pink confetti. A few petals stick to your sleeve. You let them. One odd little fact. Samurai weren't supposed to snack in public too often. It was seen as undignified. But exceptions existed, especially during festivals or long walks. And besides, you're technically off duty now. Let the people have their codes. Let you have your dumpling. Historians still argue whether this public-facing calm masked a more anxious reality beneath the surface. Were samurai truly at peace in these in-between moments? Or were they simply trained to appear that way, even when haunted by politics, money troubles, or personal doubt? The truth, as always, probably lies somewhere in between. You wander through the district's temple grounds next. The stone path is worn smooth by generations of sandals. To your left, a koi pond reflects the sky, fish moving like liquid ink beneath the surface. A woman lights incense and bows. A toddler tosses a pebble into the water and laughs. The priest sweeping the steps doesn't look up, but you know he saw you. You've been here before. You stop for a moment at one of the side altars. Not for a ritual, just to breathe. To be still. You don't press your hands together or bow this time. You just stand. That's enough. Eventually, the sun begins to dip. Shadows stretch long and blue across the gravel. It's time to head home. But before you do, you visit the market one last time. You pick up some dried fish, a few green plums, and a bundle of wood for the bath. The woman selling it throws in a small pouch of roasted barley tea with a wink. You thank her. She always does that. Walking home with your purchases tucked under one arm, you pass by a group of children playing kina, sort of paper rock scissors game, shouting their moves with gleeful seriousness. One spots you and shouts, "Samurai-san." You raise your hand in a half wave and keep walking. You don't need to remind them you're someone to respect. Your silence does it for you. By the time you reach home, the sun has begun its descent, gilding the eaves in gold. You stow the food, stack the firewood, and hang your outer robe by the doorway. A thin wind stirs the paper screen as you step inside. You prepare dinner simply. A hot miso broth again, this time with a side of boiled daikon and rice mixed with chestnuts. You eat slowly, watching the light fade into amber, then rust, then deep blue. After the meal, you light a lantern and settle at your low desk with your writing materials. Tonight's brushstrokes are slower. Not journal entries, not practice scrolls, just a poem, maybe two. One comes out in a single breath. Bare trees still whisper. Shadows lengthen without sound. I drink the silence. You pause, reread it, then set the brush down and close your eyes. Your body aches, but in a good way. You stretch once, twice, and rise to lay out your futon again. There's a rhythm here, a music, and you realize, as you settle onto the bedding and adjust your pillow, that today was not extraordinary, but it was full, layered, human. Outside, somewhere, a dog barks once and falls silent. Inside, your breathing slows. You've earned your sleep. The room glows with soft lantern light, just enough to paint golden puddles across the tatami. You lie on your back, hands resting lightly on your stomach, eyes half-lidded. The air smells of cedar, barley tea, and faint smoke from the now-dying hearth. You listen not to anything in particular, but to the quiet itself. It has a hum, a presence. And in Edo, night never arrives all at one seat, drapes itself gently, fold by fold. Tonight, like most nights, sleep doesn't ambush you. It waits patiently while you drift toward it. You shift once to your side and close your eyes properly. But just before your mind lets go, you replay the day, the practice stances, the rustle of the cherry blossoms, the sharp little crunch of sweet dango. You can still feel the weight of your sword belt. It's off now, resting beside the wall, but the echo of it clings to your waist like a loyal shadow. Somewhere, a shamisen plays, delicate and reedy, probably from a geisha house a few blocks away. It's faint, but it pierces the night like a thread of silk. You let it lull you. But just before dreams take you, the wind picks up outside and you hear a faint rattling, maybe a sign swaying in the alley. You open one eye briefly and smile. You remember the bathwater is still warm. Quietly, you rise again, this time moving like a ghost. You tiptoe past the futon and through the house to the little wooden tub outside. The water is perfectly steeped now, almost too hot, but not quite. The fire beneath has dwindled to glowing coals. You slip in slowly, shoulders sighing under the surface. The steam surrounds you, curls around your cheeks and ears. It smells of cedar ash and earth. This is a ritual, too. Maybe the most important one. Not for cleanliness, for letting go. Samurai were known to take nightly baths not only as part of etiquette, but to calm the body and spirit, especially after emotionally taxing days. Some claim the act washed off not just sweat, but spiritual residue. You believe it. The water takes more than it gives. And that's exactly what you need right now. You lean your head back, the wood warm against your neck, and stare up at the night sky. A few stars peek through the clouds, like shy guests at a gathering. A moth flutters near the lantern before giving up. The air is just cool enough to remind you to stay submerged. Historians still argue whether the everyday samurai truly embraced this sort of gentle domestic rhythm, or whether these were the rare calm days, fleeting breaks between uprisings, rivalries, and political gamesmanship. But standing here, half submerged in fragrant steam, you find that debate delightfully irrelevant. Because this is your life. Eventually, the water cools and the breeze deepens. You step out slowly, pat yourself dry with a woven cloth, and head back inside, still warm from within. The house is darker now, lanterns snuffed, hearth embers dimmed, but that only makes the futon look more inviting. You slide under the quilt again, and this time, you really mean it. You exhale, a long, loose, almost laughing kind of sigh. And as your body relaxes into the final stillness of sleep, the city outside carries on. Quiet, but never completely still. A dog barks once. A gate creaks. Water drips somewhere. Two people whisper on a balcony, their voices swallowed by the night. You are part of that murmur, a thread in the great fabric. And just before your thoughts fade into dreams, you realize something small but comforting. You'll do it all again tomorrow. Maybe the tasks will change. Maybe it'll rain. Maybe your sword will stay in its scabbard, but you'll wake again before dawn. You'll sip that bitter tea. You'll walk the streets of Edo like a quiet rhythm, and the city will rise and fall with you. That's not just duty. That's peace. Wind down. Now, the streets of Edo fade into shadow. The soft golden glow of paper lanterns dims gently, the hush of night settles like silk, and your breath begins to slow, one quiet inhale, one peaceful exhale at a time. The world you've walked tonight, the gardens, the tatama floors, the hum of the bathwater, and the warmth of barley tea all begin to dissolve into a gentle haze. You're no longer standing guard in the corridor or strolling beneath cherry blossoms. You're floating, drifting weightless through a place that's both ancient and timeless, like memory painted on parchment. There's no rush, no duty now. The katana rests. The sandals are off. The only thing left to carry is rest itself. And just as the last embers of the hearth settle into ash, your thoughts begin to soften. The voices of the city are far away, now faint lullabies of a world you've lived so gently. You don't need to think anymore. You don't need to move. Just breathe. Let the quiet fold around you like a warm quilt. The story may be ending, but your sleep is just beginning. And in that calm, still space where samurai dreams drift like smoke from the bathhouse fire, you are safe. You are home. Good night, brave dreamer of Edo.